Marianne, you like my shirt?
Okay.
I like your shirt, Loretta.
Yeah.
I didn't wear mine.
I'm dressed for the occasion.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I think people are still getting connected and getting their audio connected. So while we wait for the technology to get started, we will just start by welcoming everybody to our final session of the Summer 2021 HFC and All's Authors book series. We are so pleased to have you all join us today for lunch or breakfast, or maybe even dinner, depending on where you are. But we have some great company lined up today with Loretta Veney. So just again, welcome everybody. I'm Alexandra from HFC. I'll be putting some resources in the chat. We're excited to have our conversation today. This is certainly meant to be conversational, so please feel free to put your questions in the chat function at the bottom of your screen in Zoom, or you can raise your hand, the little icon, and Marianne will certainly open it up for questions, so people can also feel free to come off mute and to ask questions. But we're really excited to continue our featured author series this summer and wrapping it up with Loretta. So thank you again for joining, and I will pass it off to Marianne from All's Authors to get started.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. I'm Marianne Shuko. I'm a co-founder and manager of allsauthors.com. We're the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience. And we welcome you to the third and final in our summer series with HFC, this time featuring Loretta Veney and her wonderful book, Being My Mom's Mom. Thank you for sharing some of your precious time with us. And I'd like to introduce you to one of the members of our management team who is with us today, Vicky Tapia. Is Vicky coming yet?
Yes.
Yep, Vicky's here.
Okay, Vicky, say hello. This event is being recorded and will be...
Hello, everyone. Hi, Loretta.
Hi.
This event is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel. So if you prefer not to be seen, please turn off your camera, and all participants are muted. If you have a question for Loretta, please write it in the chat window at the bottom of the screen, and Alex will be checking it, and we may call on you to ask the question yourself if you'd like to. Otherwise, either Alex or I will ask the question. Everyone who participates today will receive a digital copy of our first anthology, Alzheimer's and Dementia Caregiving Stories. 58 authors share their inspiring personal experiences. Check your inbox in the next week or so for that. And you will also be added to our mailing list and will receive a weekly email from us featuring our latest resource and its author and news about special events like this. And of course, you can unsubscribe at any time if you don't want to follow. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest, Loretta Veney. Loretta is a special friend to All's Authors and was one of the first authors to appear on our blog in July 2016. Her mission is moving caregivers from I give up to I've got this. She recently retired from a 35-year career in security management and corporate training and is embarking on a new full-time career as a motivational speaker and trainer for those caring for a loved one with dementia. She is also a Lego ambassador, sharing her lifelong love for the little plastic building blocks with strategies to nurture creativity, communication, and connections between those with dementia and their loved ones. In 2006, when her beloved mom, Doris, was diagnosed with dementia, she began learning everything she could about the disease and hopes to share that information so others can be better prepared than she was for this diagnosis. In 2013, that hope turned into her first book, Being My Mom's Mom, which highlights the first 6 years of the family's dementia journey. An updated version was published in December 2019 and includes a new chapter that picks up at the end of the first book until late 2019. You have to write a new book, Loretta, to talk all about COVID now. Soon after publishing Being My Mom's Mom, Loretta began receiving requests for presentations on her caregiver experience, and since that time has given more than 275 presentations and keynote addresses to audiences across the United States. She has published 2 additional books for caregivers, Refreshment for the Caregiver's Spirit, a motivational photo book, and Colors Flowing from My Mind, an easy-to-use coloring book for those with dementia. So hi, Loretta. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Marianne and Alexandra. I appreciate being here.
Oh, yeah, we love having you here. I have to ask you the most important question. Please tell us about your mother, Doris, also known as Wonder Woman.
Also known as Wonder Woman. She is quite the person. I tell you, so much has happened since she was diagnosed in 2006. And, this is year 15 for us. And that's, quite the long journey, but it's been, sort of a wild ride, never a dull moment kind of thing. And, one of the things that, I always want people to know was, just who my mom was before this. And so she was just, a lover of reading and learning and pretty quiet, very un-Loretta-like. So, we have opposite personalities. She's very, introverted, and I certainly am not. And so she just did a lot of activities at her non-assisted living, place. She loved Tai Chi and other exercise classes, and she would help with those classes. And, you always know when things are, moving along. So in 2009, we finally realized, my sister and I, that she could no longer live alone, when she no longer could find her way back to her apartment. And she started doing something she had never done before. And she was, after dinner, which was on the first level, she would sit out with a lot of the other residents, which she had never done before. And they thought she was, she's going to, be social now. No, that wasn't it at all. The thing was, she thought if she sat on the bench long enough, she would realize what apartment she lived in. And that's how we found out. And so, it just sort of fast forwarded from there. So my mom has also always been fiercely independent. So the reason she lives in a group home is because she made us sign a document when I was a teenager that said we would never force her, didn't say force, but we would never make her live with us, her children. And so we signed it, and she lives in a group home because of that. So my husband and I, we searched for this great place for her to be. And the group home experience for us has been wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So she's still been able to maintain her independence. And, we've still been able to ensure that she had, really good care. So she still, to this day, is doing everything that she loves. She still can read, although she cannot tell you what she's reading. So she sits up happily most days, reading through something or looking at the same picture in a magazine or repeating the same thing over and over. But she's calm and relaxed and all the things you want them to be. And she's been in hospice since March 23rd. And she's in hospice because they told me she was in liver failure. She had some pain. They sent her to the hospital. They called me to say she was in liver failure and had hours or days to live. And so that was, 3.5 months ago, almost 4 months ago. And so she clearly did not get the memo that she was dying. So she's still here. So what we're doing right now is just enjoying every single day. And when I drive away from the group home, one of the things I'm always thinking is, if today was her last day here, it was a great day. So we always do. And people say, how do you deal with that? Well, first of all, I don't sit around and wait for her to die. We do the same activities we've always done. Nothing changed other than she has this fancy dancy hospice wheelchair and a new hospice bed. She had a movable bed in the first place, but now she has this fancy hospice one. That's the only thing that's changed. She's still the same person. I don't know what's happening with the liver. Don't want to know, but she's doing really well. We laugh every day, and that's all you can ask for at this point. So she's 92, and we're grateful for that. So absolutely.
God bless. That sounds great. And I enjoy, everybody here can enjoy following your story on your social media, because you're always posting photos of your mom and what you did on each visit, and you'll get a lot of great ideas on things that you can do with your loved one, regardless of where they are. can you explain a little bit about what the group home is? Because some people might
Sure.
not be familiar with that term.
Absolutely. It's a really great thing. So just imagine it's a single family home, very much like most of our homes. It's very similar in floor plan to mine. Each of the group homes are assigned how many residents you can have based on the square footage of the home. So that it's it allows residents to stay in the community longer and avoid nursing homes and that kind of thing. So it's you can use the Community Action Waiver Program, which I use here in the state of Maryland, and it allows people, as I said, to stay, in the community based on what they can pay. So the owner of this group home called Life Springs Elder Care has 3 homes total, and they vary in size. So I thought my mother would do best in one of the smaller ones since she doesn't like a lot of people. But it's cool because they sit around the table and they all eat together, all their meals and that kind of thing. And so it makes it feel like a home, rather than just a nursing home or an institution or in a room where they're all by themselves. So they get all the people. This has a big family room and a huge kitchen and a dining room. And there's a huge laundry room. There's a nursing office and other offices for the staff. Each of the residences are really huge. And of course, there's the chair lift that gets them up and down. So it's a really, really great environment. You can go anytime. Pre-COVID, you could visit anytime. No need to call first. I always say in a presentation I do call advocating for our loved ones, when people say, call before you come, that's code word for we're going to get them all cleaned up before you show up. And so I love not having to call before you go and that kind of thing. I'm always on the lookout for that. And so I just love the home environment, ringing the bell, and looking at all the other residents, all the families. I applaud the owner because she wants all the families to get to know each other. So she has these Mother's Day lunches and tea parties. And the last holiday party, of course, we had was 2019 of Christmas, but we did have a Mother's Day luncheon this year. She built a huge deck, the owner built a huge deck on the outside of the home to replace a very small patio where only one family could visit at a time. So now there are 4 different patio sets on this huge deck. And now if everybody wanted to, everybody could go at the same time, which we did for the Mother's Day luncheon too. So I think when you find these places, if you're interested in the home, in the group home environment, just really investigate, the owners, look at each of the homes and decide if that is an environment that would work well for your loved one. Because we looked at several before my husband and I decided on her first one, which was Mamie's Loving Care. And the only reason I moved her from there, it was fabulous, much like the name indicates. But the only reason I moved her from there to Life Springs Elder Care is when the 8 years that we waited on the waiting list to be a part of this waiver program, the Mamie's Loving Care was no longer participating in the waiver program. So I had to make that decision to move my mother from one place to the other. And, it was a traumatic decision because, when they're in the middle to late stages of dementia, you really shouldn't move them. But we chose to do that, and it was the right decision because really I was paying about $1,500 a month to supplement my mother's care on top of her retirement funds. And without my husband, it became difficult to do that. So that's the environment, and I hope it works for some of you out there.
That sounds great. And you have been involved with caring for your mom during COVID. Can you share with us a little bit about how that was and how it is, because it's ongoing?
It is ongoing. So I will be 1,000% transparent and say it was the longest 99 days of my life. And we weren't allowed really any visits other than, through the glass door. And so that was very difficult. We are 5th generation Washingtonians, which means, we spent our whole lives, here in the DC area. And I went to college and grad school here in DC. So that 99 days literally was the longest my mother and I had ever been separated. And I was pretty hysterical about it, actually. And so you try to just find ways to do it. And so everybody was talking on social media how they were overcoming it and making signs. We did that. My daughter and granddaughter, we wrote on signs, we had balloons, we did all kinds of crazy stuff. And I think the thing that got the most attention for us was this Lego. I know we're going to talk about the Legos later, but I made this Lego thing that indicates what it was like me looking through the glass at my mother. It got a zillion hits on, and there's the caregiver making sure we don't go in. But here was the part of us visiting through the glass and just looking at her eyes, then me staring at my mother. And there's a radio there because I always play music for my mom. And when I put that on social media, what it was like looking through the glass at her, I mean, there were, tons of comments about it, and everybody was experiencing the same pain. And when you say it is continuing, yes. So in Prince George's County, Maryland, where I live, the numbers of COVID have been going up. So even though we are not, we are all vaccinated, we all got vaccinated together. And some of the other group home families got vaccinated too, in addition to the residents and all the caregivers. So when the numbers started to tick up, the owner, reinstated the mask mandate, which the governor did, but she also mandated that we couldn't visit inside. So I talked to her less than an hour ago. So we are still negotiating how this is going to continue to play out. And, as I say in that advocate presentation, when you have questions for when your loved one does not live with you, you have to be in constant contact with the people who are in charge of them and make sure they understand your feelings and that we're all on the same page in terms of visiting and keeping them safe and doing all those kinds of things. So I made sure I got that done before we started this, today. So it's been quite the struggle. And, I think one of the blessings about social media is that we are all in this together. So people have cried together and, done the virtual hug and all of that. So one of the ideas my best friend had when I literally cried with her on the phone after doing the first 99 days, she actually sent me a set of photo pillows and a picture with me and my mom and my granddaughter, and my mom has one with me and her on it. And so we just hugged that on the days that we couldn't see each other. And that pillow, my mother, if they go into my mom's room in the middle of the night, sometimes she's hugging that pillow, she's holding up to it at night. So she doesn't know who I am, but she certainly recognizes that I'm somebody familiar. So I'm hoping, just based on what she does sometimes at night, I'm hoping that the pillow, is a good replacement for me at this point. And so that's how we've primarily been dealing with it, just kind of a day by day thing.
I'm sure many people here have been struggling with COVID as well. And hopefully with the vaccine, things will get better before they get worse.
Yes.
We can only hope.
The numbers have gone up in Maryland. I think the shock of, putting the mask back on again, so really it was only like 2 or 3 weeks that, you went to the store without the mask on. And so I think that has shocked the unvaccinated into, maybe going forward with it. Because then one of the cities within the county where I live had a high number of unvaccinated people, and now they're starting to go to the vaccination site. So, I think there is some hope within that. And then the rest of us will just continue to work, keeping in mind, obviously, the safety of those we're trying to protect, but still maintaining that connection. My mother looks for me if I'm not, even though she doesn't really know who I am, you can tell, by some of the things she'll say or do that she's missing me. And when the door opens and she sees me from the 6 feet outside, I'm outside, she's inside, and she says, "Hi." So she clearly gets that it's that it's me, or she'll say, "You're here." And so, yes, I am here. I'm always going to be here. So we just do that smile thing and it's all good. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's terrific. So your journey now is 15 years. Mm-hmm. And you wrote a book early on, and then you updated the book, Being My Mom's Mom. Can you tell us a little about your book and what made you decide to write the book and all of that?
Absolutely. So I wrote the book for one primary reason: to help others prepare and be much more prepared than what I was for this. This diagnosis was shocking. She was 77 at the time. In 2006, she was just full of life and everything. So shocking. And we had done no preparation. She's the first one in our family to, have dementia. So you're like, what? And the scariest thing, and why I wrote the book, was, not only to help others be prepared, but to help me get more financially prepared, because I wasn't prepared at all. So I wrote the book because I was afraid my mother was going to outlive my money. And it's as simple as that. I couldn't think of any other way to, help her with, the cost of this care, for which, back then, you didn't have a lot of people who had long-term care. When she retired from the federal government, it was like 1974. And so, I don't even know if people knew what long-term care was back then. If there was, she certainly didn't have it. And so I wrote the book to help with that. And so when I say the fear that she would outlive the money, what I mean by that is my great-grandmother lived alone until she was 101 and cooked every day and all that. And we had to fight her at 101 to move her to an assisted living. And how we got her to go was she realized there were men at the assisted living. So that's when she agreed to go. I'm like, oh my God, that was more information than you wanted about your grandma. But anyway, and so she lived to be 107. So
Wow.
even though math is not my strong suit, I know there's a whole lot of years between 77 and 107. And so, yeah, that scared me to death. And every dime in the first, I started speaking in 2014. So every dime of the book sales and those speeches went to pay for my mother's care, because between the time in 2006, my mother still had enough money to pay for her, rent at the apartment. And so when she moved to the group home, we would take a little bit out of her account to add to her retirement check. And so at first I didn't have to add anything. Then I started adding, when she ran out of money in the first 2.5 years, then I started adding 400, 500, 1,000 and up to 1,500. So when my husband was still alive, doing the 1,500 wasn't an issue. But when he died so suddenly, that 1,500 became a struggle. And so thankfully for that book, so everybody that bought that book, we thank you, because that's what really helped to pay for her care until we got into the waiver program. And the benefit of the waiver program is whatever income they have, that is what is accepted as full pay. And so the only thing I pay now to the waiver program is what they call an administrative fee, which is less than $200. And so that just was a big relief after that. So the book itself is based on really 6 things: forgiveness, preparation, patience, heartbreak, humor, and hope. Those are the 6 sort of tenets of the book. And so many things happened. The most dramatic thing that happened in the first edition of the book that came out in 2013 was that my sister died. And so the first, 5 years or so of mom's diagnosis, my sister had MS. And my mother was very aware she had MS. My sister was diagnosed with MS 2 months after my mom was diagnosed with dementia. And so she lived 4 years. When you get MS in your 50s, you get something called progressive. So she only lived 4 years and she died in 2011. And so my mother's sister was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and she died 5 months after my mom's diagnosis. So I was like, okay, this is not good. Everybody's kind of leaving. And so between 2013 and 2016, it was just me and my husband, and we called ourselves, Team Veney. And then, while we were on vacation in 2016, he died in New York. And so it's like, oh man. And he and my sister died on the same day, 5 years apart, which is just the craziest, the same day. Who does that? And the whole thing was shocking. And so in 2017, I decided so much had changed in terms of not only my mother's condition. She stayed in that first, early to mid stage for the first 7-8 years, which was a really good time. But then she sort of sped through near the, end portion. And so now she's in very much the late stages for sure. And so many things happened. I wanted to still using the same things, the forgiveness and the patience and the heartbreak and all that. I, as you mentioned in the introduction, I wrote that last chapter to cover all those things and what had changed in those 6 years, because so many things had changed. So now it's just me. So I am all my mother, has. So I, drive a little slower than I used to and things like that. Like, wow, don't let anything happen to me. And so COVID, scares the life out of you, because you're like, please don't let me get this thing and, die and, leave my mom. And one of the things I learned talk about preparation. When my husband died, I met with, they gave me his life insurance, my broker asked if I wanted to meet with an elder care attorney. I didn't even know what they did, but one of the most amazing things they did for me was to suggest that I put my house in a trust for my mother. So God forbid I get hit by a bus tomorrow, or I got COVID and died, my mother's care would still be paid for. And that was so just, felt like a lot of weight lifted off of me. Because I'm telling you, my sister and I used to joke all the time that my mother was going to outlive all of us. And look, she almost has, I'm like, yeah. Both my mother's sisters have died, and my Aunt Franny died in 2013, right before right after the book came out. She died, and she got her copy of the book and read it over and over. So I really am it, other than a couple of cousins that I have. So that putting my house in the trust really did a lot for us.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, I can relax and, breathe now, like, wow, one less thing to worry about. So.
Yeah, that's very good advice. And people should, reach out to an elder law attorney and see what options that they have too to provide for their loved one or protect assets.
I would have never called this gentleman if it had not been recommended to me. Who knew I needed one? I did not. And so I redid my entire will and all of that to care for make sure that if something happened to me, my mother would be well taken care of. So
yeah, that was really smart to do that. Now, somebody had a question in the chat. Another author, Arlene Barnett, she wrote a book called My Mother Has Alzheimer's and My Dog Has Tapeworms, a Caregiver's TL. And she wants to know, where do you get your speaking engagement requests from? How were you able to get on the speaking circuit through your book?
So that was the biggest accident ever. I went to an aging conference in the state of Maryland to sell the book. And there were lots of other vendors there. There were assisted living communities and exercise programs, adult day programs. Everybody was there. And so there were probably 100 vendors. There were all these activities, Zoom classes and stuff. So I'm selling this book, trying to get the income for my mom. And there was an assisted living and memory care person there. And she looked bored sitting, at the table. So I had signed a few books. I was like, would you like a book? She's like, yeah. So she takes the book and she reads it. And a few days later, she calls, she says, oh, that book was fabulous. I want you to come and speak to my community. I'm like, sure, had no idea what that would turn into. Her name is Julie Boone Roth, and she works for Arden Courts in Silver Spring. And we've been friends since then. And so she had me in to speak, in the fall. And then she asked me, just to show you how unaware I was. She asked me to send 10 books to their organization, and it was going to be read by some board. And then she said, and then we'll see if it goes into our warehouse. I didn't ask any questions. I say, okay, I send the book. And so a month later, she called, she says, are you sitting down? I said, yeah. She said, well, the board, whoever they were, accepted your book as to go into our warehouse. She said, so get ready. People will start to ask you to come and speak. And as she said the word speak, my email just started, dinging and all these people. And so, hi, I'm from the one in Pittsburgh. Hi, I'm from Florida. Hi, I'm from here. Could you come to speak to us? Like, huh? And so I had no idea what a national speaker was, but I became one. And so I now have, I'm a national speaker for 2 or 3 different assisted living and memory care facilities. So I have been traveling around the country between, like I said, 2014 when all this started and up until COVID. So 6 weeks after everything locked down, I got the last flight out of Westchester, New York on February 28th before they moved my flight up 3 hours. So they literally had to drive me from the restaurant where I was speaking to the airport so I could make my flight. I thought I was going to sightsee afterwards, but that was not happening. So between February 28th, when it was the last time I gave it, and I did 5 weeks, I learned all about Zoom, and I went virtual almost right away. So I've done, I probably did 87 Zoom presentations since COVID, 44 of which were my newest creation. When all the adult daycare programs started to close, I wrote a presentation called Engaging Activities for Every Alzheimer's Stage. So I do this little show and tell thing. I have this whole table of activities and I demonstrate them, and then people are like, Loretta, help me, mom's home all day, I don't know what activities to do. So Loretta wrote that thing, and it has become, people now send me all kinds of activities to try out with my mom. So who knew this would be the thing in COVID? But that's how it started, just from me giving a woman a book at a fair and it just went from there.
Someone wants to know, what's the general conference you went to in Maryland? That
What was
first
the-
one.
What was the age? It was called Active Aging or something like that, and it was in Gaithersburg,
Okay.
2014.
And
Yeah.
how would you advise the author with the question of how to get started with her book? What
Sure.
advice can you
I
give her?
would suggest calling. I'd start with the Alzheimer's Association. I've done lots of work for both the DC chapter and Western and Western Virginia and Central Kentucky, something like that. It's got a really long name. A little bit further south of here. I'm in the process of doing some work with the Alzheimer's Association of South Carolina. So I would start with them and the Department of Aging, wherever you are, to see what events, virtual or not, may be happening. And so any conferences that are about aging, I speak about caregiving in general, not just dementia. So any conferences like that, you can send in a proposal to speak or contact some of your local assisted living and see if they have events that they have speakers for, and volunteer yourself to do that. And I'm happy to talk to you offline about it too. You can give them my information, put my information in the chat. I'm happy to discuss that as well.
Okay. And getting back to the your mom's group home, somebody wants to know the address, but could you just put her in the right direction of how to get in touch with those group homes?
Sure. I will put that in the chat. Let me see what
Okay.
I would do that.
All right. Awesome. Let me see. I had another question for you. Can you tell us a little bit about the other books that you
Sure.
wrote?
Yes. So the other books, I'll put that Life Springs in just a minute. So the other books, I wrote the photo anthology motivation thing that my husband and I did. It just came from all the travels that we had done, all the beautiful things that we had seen. And looking at pictures have always uplifted my spirits, always. And wherever trips we went on, my mother never really traveled a lot. We would come back and show her all the pictures and she would ooh and ah. And she says, these make me feel so great. And so I was like, I'm going to do a book just on, the photos that we've done. And then I added motivational sayings to the pictures to motivate people. And so we have, pictures from Greece and Italy and some of, and I don't know what printer this guy uses, but it's phenomenal. And that's the cover, which is Naples, Italy. My husband, I had forced him to go on this big hike, and we went downhill. So of course we had to go uphill. And so it was such a long hike in Naples. And he said, this better be the cover of your next book. And so it did. Refreshment for the Caregiver Spirit is that cover. And he didn't live to see it, but he certainly knew that we had picked more than 150 pictures together. So it's about 170 pictures. I did a 2019 version of this too, which included probably 40 new pictures. And so that was really cool. I really like that one. And that one's dedicated to Tim, of course. And then the coloring book, I created because Mom got really frustrated. She's always loved to color. And she got really frustrated with the other coloring books because she could no longer stay in the lines. So I actually call it an intergenerational coloring book, because at the time my granddaughter was 6 when this came out. So she was just learning to stay in the line, and my mother was trying to be in the line. So I do a lot of work at a intergenerational program in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And so they have an intergenerational lot of projects that they do. So I had used it with them as well. So all I really did was make, shapes, big wide spaces that Mom could color in. And I used some of her favorite sayings, and you can see how big the spaces are, that you could color in. And because this was really for her, one of the funniest things that happened is I did like 60 designs, just geometric shapes. And so I put them all out on the table, and she picked her 30 favorite that went in the book. And because she did that, I put her picture on the back of the book with mine. So one day doing the outdoor visits during COVID, she sees both of us on the back of the book. She says, "What are you doing on the back of my book?" I'm like, girl, you wouldn't even have a book if it wasn't for me. But in any case, I just wanted to acknowledge that she helped, do that. And it was just such a pleasure doing it with her. And she still colors. Apparently the hospice social worker visited her yesterday. She said she can still really color. So apparently they colored yesterday in the book. So yeah, I still want to focus on all the things that she can still do. That's how I survive, this disease. Is if I wrote a list of all the things she could no longer do, I'd be crazy. So I choose to just focus on all the things she can still do. And coloring is one of them. And so that's cool. And I'll type life springs. Let me put my glasses on so I can spell life springs correctly. And I'll give you the life springs elder care, Temple Hills, Maryland. And the owner's name is Faye, spell Loretta, Hutchinson. There you go.
All right,
And
thank
it's
you. That's
really
awesome.
You're welcome.
So have you thought about maybe publishing another book of activities for Alzheimer's and dementia?
I am thinking about that. That's a great question. People have talked to me about that. Hey, you're going to do an activities thing. And since IARP named me the entertainment director in their caregiver stories, because I'm always trying to find new activities. And I applaud that title, really. And so, yeah, I would like to publish something that gives people hope in terms of activities, because one of the things I notice in some of the support groups, that I work with is people, think that dementia diagnosis, that means all things kind of stop, but you might have to tailor some of the same activities you used to do, just do it in a different way. So like, she still colors, but now, we just made something new for her to color in. And she, still, likes to do the Legos. And so, we do that. She has her own, pack of those, and just all the other things that I have tried out, whether it's photo cards or the photo card game that's sold on a lot of sites called We See, QUISI, which is yes, yes in French and Spanish. And it's a thing to start conversations. And so, yeah, I'd like to take some of those and just show folks how to adapt from, going from the early stages to the late stages. You don't have to stop doing some of their most favorite things just because they may not be able to do it in the same way that they used to. And so that's really the message I want to get out in terms of if I do that. But several people have asked me, not if I'm going to do it, but when I'm going to do it. So I might start working on that. Now that I only have one job, I might start working on that. It's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah. So that leads to my next question, because you recently made a very exciting announcement about your retirement and embarking on a new career.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
So yeah, it is exciting. So my master's degree was in forensic science. So I've always been, my last stint was I did 9.5 years at Homeland Security, and I was a trainer. I've always done mostly training and teaching for non-security people to do security work. And so I've done that I had done that for 40 years. I also teach grad school for everybody getting a master's degree in security management. So the teaching I'm still going to do online, but everything else I decided to leave behind. And so my goal for 2021 during COVID became focusing on the caregiver. And I felt the best way to do that would be to just focus on that full time. So I made it sort of the year of the caregiver. So I started doing, like I said, the engaging activities presentation, the lifting the spirit of the caregiver, which is one of the first presentations I ever put together. That became so much more popular during the end of 2020 and throughout this year. And so I think my focus will be much better now that I only have the one thing. But I have to say, I have to give USCIS, which is immigration, that was the component of DHS I work for, and I have to give them so much credit. So many of the chiefs that were in my division had a relative with Alzheimer's, so they cheered for me as I flew around the country. They let me make up time through the whole 7 years that I started speaking. They would put up on the board where I was the keynote speaker and all kinds of stuff. And when we were in the New York Times, they all ran around and get their copy signed and stood at the copy machine. I could never have been more supported as I was through that agency, being able to get out and help other caregivers, and they just could not have supported me enough. So it was sad to leave from that perspective, because you could not have asked for more, but I am thrilled to just be able to do this full time. Just absolutely thrilled. So.
Does that mean more Lego serious play?
It does mean that. So part of doing Lego serious play, it is a real thing. I am a trained facilitator in that, and Alexandra has some firsthand experience with it. So it's intended to improve community. There's her Lego thing. So it's intended to improve communication and all that. It's designed for organizations, but I decided to use it for caregivers. And this year, we're also going to do some sessions with the folks with dementia themselves. So I've done some adult day programs where I've helped them build memories or just build art. It has been so much fun. I wish you could see the pictures. It is crazy good. And so this year, because last year we've been so traumatized by COVID, I've written courses where we have built joy and or hope. And in Alexandra's case for HFC, we did embracing caregiver challenges. So I had people build, what's your greatest challenge with this disease? And they did all kinds of stories. And then everybody shares, everybody builds, and everybody holds theirs up, just like Alexandra just did, and explains, here's my story. And then I had them build, how are you going to overcome the challenge that you built? And then they tear it apart and they build the next thing. And when people see holding in their hands what they built, and this is my story, and this is how I'm going to overcome it. One gentleman, he said he had a lot of trouble communicating, with one of his grandparents, and he then made a second model on wheels. And he said he was going to find ways to drive around the challenges. And we were all like, whoa, it was just the coolest thing ever, like, wow. And people came up with all kinds of things, how they were going to embrace it. One was a husband and wife, and he did bring his wife with dementia. And she had done all the cooking. She was a chef, but everything he built still included her. Here they were sitting at the table, and he had two little Lego people and at this table. I mean, it was phenomenal. And people get very emotional about it. And some people don't realize how much stress they've been holding. But then when they build their thing and they're holding it up, and everybody's looking, I had them build what had been stealing their joy for Hopkins, which is one of my largest partners. And then I asked them to break it apart. And one lady threw her thing that had been stealing her joy down on the table, and it broke into a zillion pieces. And she burst into tears. And she said, this is the first time I've recognized how stressed I was. And as a facilitator, I keep saying to myself, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. But it is stunningly amazing. And so I'm thrilled that I chose to dedicate this year to the caregiver. I don't know if I had said this to Alexandra, but I learned from that experience that I cannot do two of those sessions in the same day because it's so emotionally draining. I'm like, I was exhausted at the end. And so Hopkins originally signed on to do 3 sessions. And after the first one, they signed for 5 more. They have 17 different support groups within the Johns Hopkins medicine system. And so it's probably one of the proudest things I've ever done. Legos had been such a huge part of my life with my mom that even in 2014, when she no longer remembered me, she remembered the Legos. So the New York Times, the Washington Post, everybody came to our house. And my mom was so oblivious when people come in. So she was doing a puzzle or something. So the New York Times photographer says, well, let me see the Legos, because my mother wasn't interacting or anything. So we get the Legos out. And all of a sudden she recognized, somebody else is here. She says, oh, hello. And the man had been there like 2 hours already. Well, until you got the Legos out, she comes alive when you do it. She doesn't know me from Adam, but she knows we have fun. And when you get the Legos out, she just comes back. And I was like, well, if it had that impact on my mom, could other seniors experience that too? So I started doing at a place called Generations Crossing in Harrisonburg. Was the first time I ever did Lego Serious Play with a organization that had adult day and pre-K kindergarten. And I put those folks together and we just had this roaring session. And then I did Lego art with they're probably 25 people, adults in their program. Some have Parkinson's, dementia, Downs, pretty much everything. And they had the best time doing art. And one man who never does any activities unless it's Lego day, and then he'll participate. So it's been a wild ride in terms of that, but I can't even put into words how fulfilling that is. Just watching the joy on people's, there's pictures of, they gave me permission at HFC to put that picture of our session on my website, and everybody's smiling. And, they hold up their little Lego thing and everybody's smiling. And it's like, wow, they sure are having a good time. And I just want as many people as possible to have a good time. That's what it comes down to. So
Where can people find, is it possible for people to find resources like you with the Legos in their own community? Are you the only person doing this, or is there like a whole bunch of people everywhere?
so if you Googled Lego Serious Play, yeah, there's a whole lot of us. Lego headquarters is in Denmark, and I've been to headquarters several times. And one of the things I am going to do in 2022, whenever this is over, is I am going to go and show them how I'm doing it with adults and folks with dementia. But to answer the question, yes, there are a lot of facilitators out there. But even if you just call the Department of Aging, like in the county where I live, I am going to do for National Caregiver Month in November. I already have like 6 Lego things on the calendar, and one of them is here in my own county. And we're going to be doing it a live version and with people online, which will be one of the first times I've ever done it live and in person with other people virtually. So we're going to try to do a big event, which will be on their YouTube channel. And so, yes, I would say it is possible to get that. If you contact an activities director within your Department of Aging, or ask the Alzheimer's Association about it, when they do memory cafes. Memory cafes is a thing you do where the loved one and the kid and the person they're caring for come together to do an activity. And that was the one that I'm going to be, that memory cafe possibility is the one I'm going to be doing, and have us build, you know, a memory together, their favorite vacation or their first home. Because, you know, people with dementia always say, I want to go home. So I want people to sort of build their Lego replica of what reminds them of their favorite home or wherever they live.
Mm.
So I'm already designing those workshops for this fall. But yes,
Oh,
anybody, and you know, you can go to, you know, Walmart or Target and get some Lego bricks and do your own thing at home. You could do, you know, you could do that too. And I, in that engaging activities presentation, I do show people some of the things to do. And these are the, if you're afraid of people putting the Legos in their mouth, you know, these are the Duplo ones that Lego makes. And in the UK, they do something called 6 bricks, which is a variety of activities you can do for kids and for folks with dementia. And I'm probably going to go to London and check that out as well. But my mother doesn't, she does do the Duplos at times, but she prefers the regular size Lego bricks. So it really depends on if you're going to do that at home. It depends on where, you know, that person is, and if you're going to be watching them the whole time. I would not leave a little bucket of Lego bricks and you go do laundry. I would not do that if they are prone to putting anything in their mouths or anything like that. I never thought my mom would do that, and then probably 2 months ago she did it, and I had the whole thing on video, and I was like, this is why. I was sitting right next to her, and I said, this is why you don't leave them alone. So I would put out some, you know, not instructions per se, because if you're just building, you don't need instruction. That's the beauty of the whole thing. But you certainly want to make some suggestions about when they should not be alone and that kind of thing, if you're going to leave them with certain activities. So that's what I would say.
Carol
I put my email
yes,
there too. Okay.
in the chat. I see that. Now, Carol says that she doesn't know anything about Legos. So what kind of set should she start with?
I would just do a small starter set. So at Walmart and Target, they have something called a creator series. And it's not like you're building a car or anything. So it's just a small box of bricks. And I would get one that comes with a little container. So they're always in the same thing. Some of them are just a paper cardboard box, but they also make a set, this creative kind of set that comes in a reusable, like a Lego tin, and it has a cover, and you could carry them all around and that kind of thing. So just something small, $20 or less. You can get those creative sets. I think the smallest is maybe 60 pieces or so, and then they go all the way up to like 1,500. I just bought a 1,500 set for a project I'm going to do for Hopkins in September. So you can get all sizes, but I wouldn't spend a lot of money until you make sure they enjoy the activity and it's something maybe the whole family could do. And I mean, the whole time the kids were home from school doing the virtual thing, I was like, see if your kids can get some credit for doing something with grandma during the day. And they were like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of it. People would have rented you their kid by the time they had been home for a month. They would have given you their kid. And so you're like, go over there and play with the next door neighbor. And people started doing that. And it was great. It was great. And so I just don't want the pressure of the instructions. You know, you buy a set. My granddaughter has a huge set right here of this astronaut thing we're supposed to be putting together. But when somebody has dementia, you don't want to follow directions. You just want them to build whatever they want.
And so we had an amazing experience where a woman, a caregiver who was attending the Lego session, had not intended to bring her husband, who was, in her words, disruptive. So she had gotten she thought she had gotten a neighbor to watch him during the session, but the neighbor got COVID. So she brought her husband with her and sat him right next to her. And so while I was talking, this man, who apparently never did any activities, and I didn't know the backstory, he all of a sudden, while I'm talking, he starts to put the Lego bricks together, and everybody instantly started screaming, he's doing it. And I didn't know the backstory, so everybody's crying, and I'm not sure what the situation is, but it was the only activity she could ever get him to do. And I had no idea what was going on, and I knew I was the only one that wasn't crying. And so it was amazing. And he sat there he didn't make one sound. She said he throws stuff and pushes people, and he sat there that entire time and just stared at the screen. I'd never, I'd not seen that other than with my mother. Because my mother she doesn't focus on anything long except a magazine. She'll read the same magazine over and over, but not actually working with her hands unless it's the Lego bricks, which is very interesting.
Wow. That sounds fascinating. Are there any other activities you've tried with folks with dementia?
Sure. The We See thing that I mentioned is just I wish I had taken it out. It's about this size. It was interesting. So it's a set of cards, almost this exact size. This is a coaster, of course. It's almost this size. And they're just random pictures. A bicycle. My mother's favorite one, I can tell you, is an ice cream cone that had fallen on the ground. And my mother had very little reaction to most of the cards. When she saw that ice cream cone, ice cream is her favorite food of all time. When she saw that ice cream cone on the ground, she said, "Oh no." And that was the only comment she made about all the pictures. And there's gardens, there's tools. And so it's intended, it says from ages, 1 to 101 or something like that. And of course you can't do it at 1, but you know what I mean. But so if you put all these cards out on the table and you can connect them and do all kinds of things, connect them by sitting them next to each other. They don't connect, but you know what I mean. Or some people arrange them in, with flowers or cars or whatever it is, but they're just trying to get conversation started between all age groups. So, there's a grandkid or great grandkid at the table. And so that one's really cool. We do, of course, she has the robotic dog from Joy for All, formerly Hasbro. Some folks from Hasbro, formerly from Hasbro, did that. So everybody has the robotic pets. I demonstrate those. There's all kinds of mazes and puzzles. The puzzles to remember is a good thing that people use. Has 36 or so pieces, 24, 36. I think 40 some is as big as they go. So when people, that's what I mean about not stopping activities. If your loved one used to do these, 1,000-piece puzzles, no, they can't do that now with dementia. But that doesn't mean you have to give up doing puzzles. Get one made for Alzheimer's with the big pieces and let them put it together. I had been to Paris in 2019. I bought my mom a puzzle, and this Alzheimer's type puzzle with 32 or 36 pieces. And that was her Christmas present, and had the lit up Eiffel Tower on it. And she did that one. So you don't have to stop. They can't do puzzles anymore. Why not? Just get the one that works for them. So you just keep tailoring the activities until they can no longer do it, and you're all set.
All right. That's great advice too. You've given us a lot of ideas today.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, I always like to ask about self-care. And I know one of your favorite self-care activities is your RV life.
It is.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So our original goal, my husband and I's original retirement goal, was to do something called work camping. So we had a huge RV, and my goal was to go around the country and teach Lego art to little kids and adults who were, vacationing, whatever, building their bucket lists. And that was going to be our job, living in our RV and going around the country. So when he died, I had promised him I would continue to go RVing, and we met this group of women who RV, and just by chance, my husband met these women, and he says, "Oh, well, if anything ever happens to me, you make sure Loretta keeps going camping." And 6 weeks later, he was dead. And I've been with those women ever since. And it's called RVing Women. And so that way, I'm not on the hiking trail by myself. I've been to Maine. I've been to the Great Smoky Mountains. And so friends have jumped in and tried to help me do the bucket list that Tim and I had started. And so I'm doing that. So I have a 24-foot Class C, which is the one you drive. Her name is Joy. What else would her name be? And so I have a whole lot of Legos in there. So my goal is still sort of kind of to go around the country speaking and then visiting national parks and things. Our goal was to see all the national parks. And so I'm speaking, I want to say in Cincinnati in the fall. And my goal is to take my RV and to speak and then go see some of the national parks around there. So I'm still going to try to, fit that in. So I'm sure I'll still make all the national parks thing. That's the goal. And we'll see if we can make that happen. But for the most part, I think the self-care for me, yes, it has always been in nature. So 3 weeks ago, I went to a park in Pennsylvania, Ricketts Glen State Park. It has 22 waterfalls. And I did a 7-mile hike through there. And if you're not rejuvenated after seeing 22 waterfalls, then I'm not sure what would work for you. But yeah, it was amazing. And so one of the other ladies from RVing Women, we went together, both in our own RVs, and we stayed 3 days. They had no internet. That's another way to have self-care. And I didn't realize they weren't going to have internet. So when we got there, we had to drive down the mountain to talk to some people like, don't y'all be looking for me. I'm not missing. I'm just not going to have internet. So it's probably the longest I've ever been off social media. Everybody's like, where's Loretta? She got some waterfall somewhere. Really funny. So yeah.
Yeah, well, you posted some great pictures on
Those
Facebook.
pictures were amazing. People like, that's why I put my little face in there so people would know I hiked every bit of that 7.2 miles to see those 22 waterfalls. I'm like, okay, I'm 60 some, this is crazy, but it was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah.
That is clearly self-care. And the biggest thing is my mom has a frame called Skylight, which is a frame that has its own internet address, and you email the pictures right through it. So sometimes when I'm in Paris or wherever I am, I always email my mom some cool pictures that'll go right to her screen. The caregiver doesn't have to do anything. I hate adding to people's job. I don't like telling the caregivers to do something for my mother. So that's why I got that frame, and I can send her whatever pictures I want to. And she's on the trip with us. So yeah.
That is a great idea.
The cool thing, I saw it on the Today Show. And you don't have to remember in the old days, we had to put a card in the frame to show the pictures. You remember that?
Yeah.
Now you just email it right to the thing and she can see it, everything I'm doing.
That's great. That's awesome. Now somebody's asking for your email address, which you had already put in the chat notes, but if you can say that again.
Yeah, I will. And it's really easy. So it's my initials, L.W. Veney, and then my last name. And I'll even give you my phone number. How that engaging activities thing got started in the first place was I give out my cell phone number at every presentation, and people say, you're crazy for doing that. And so when COVID hit, that's why everybody started calling me and say, help, what am I supposed to do with mom? Oh my God, adult days. So I started talking to all these people. It was awesome. So there's my phone number, and hold on. There you go. It's my phone number and my email, and my website is very easy. It's just lorettaveney.com. It has all of the presentations I give. There's lots and lots of pictures on there, some of the activities of the Lego stuff and places that I've spoken around the country. And so that's all the stuff for me.
Awesome. And there's one final question here from Susan. She says, I can't really figure out what my mother-in-law used to like to do. What do I do now?
Okay.
She liked to cook, but that is hard.
Okay, so what I would do, that is a great question. So what I would do is try some things without buying stuff. So I would suggest seeing what old games you or the neighbors have around the house, board games, dominoes. So dominoes, I discovered from my mom. My mom cannot play dominoes by any stretch of the imagination. However, the dominoes of today have bright colors, and my mother was putting the colors together, red and blue. And so I didn't buy anything at first. My next door neighbors are huge fans of dominoes, and so I borrowed some. So borrow some stuff and try out different things without buying them. And one of the things I knew about my mom was, she loved all the old movies. So turn on AMC and let them watch some things. Maybe they can hum along with some of the songs. I bought every musical for my mother, known to man. She was sure she was going to marry Yul Brynner from The King and I, but that didn't work out, of course. So he's dead, but okay. So she can still hum along with some of those sounds. And she sewed. So there are some of those magnetized kind of things that simulate sort of sewing and carpentry and things. I do a lot of the stress ball things. This one, I had made for me with the little Lego bricks, of course. You can do some of those things. I did a lot of fidget toys for my mom so that even though she still can't build everything she used to, I made these, the folks with dementia love bright colors. So I made these fidget toys and glued it together. So if you can think of things that they used to love to do, just make it easy for them to continue to do that. And if you're looking through books or magazines and they get excited about something you see, maybe you can order that. But I would start small. And again, I spent hundreds of dollars on something like Christmas. You spend all this money on your kids and then they play with it for 5 minutes and that's the end of it. And so I would say, try out lots of things without spending a lot of money, but then don't throw anything away, because what works today may not work tomorrow. So if they haven't played with this for, several months, get it out again. They might, go for it again. So don't get rid. You know how when your kids outgrow your toys, that's different. You give it to the Goodwill or the next door neighbor. Don't do that, because you never know when something will come back, in fashion for them. And so I still have I have a huge bag, and a duffel bag in my car, which has all the activities that I show. But when I go anywhere, it's like having a diaper bag. When you go out, you used to go to college, you had the favorite pacifier and the backup pacifier. Well, I have all kinds of activities like that, things that don't make noise in the doctor's office, right? So I had the silent toys for the doctor's office, and I had the toys that make noise, when I wanted to keep her alert. And so I have a lot of stuff. And don't put it all out at once to overwhelm them, but have lots of choice so that they can, you can see what excites them the most. And don't try to force them to do it. Or when they are doing the activities, please don't say, Mama, that's not how you do it. It doesn't matter. It's about the activity itself, not about the process. I just want to yell at these adults for trying to correct their parents. It doesn't matter how they're doing activities, they're engaged. Don't try to tell them how to do it. Just let them have fun. And that's the greatest advice I can give you.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was
You're
lovely to
welcome.
see you today and
Great
to
to
have
see
you
you.
share your story with us.
Thanks, Loretta.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank
Take
you. The
care.
program is recorded. It'll be up as a podcast on the Al's Authors website in a few weeks, and also on our YouTube channel, so you can watch it again or share it
Yay.
with others.
Thank
Thanks so
you
much,
all.
everybody.
Thanks
Have
for
a great
joining,
day.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.